The Runnin Rebels have found their answer. Josh Pastner is set to become the 18th head coach in UNLV men's basketball history. The signing has garnered much praise, but can Pastner get the Runnin Rebs back to dominance? We're all in. It's time to break this exciting news down. Sin City Beat starts right now.
From Las Vegas, this is Sin City Beat.
Welcome to Sin City Beat. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. I'm your host, Mike Davis. Sin City Beat is the show that dissects the Vegas sports world through the eyes of the reporters and storytellers leading the charge. Joining the panel today, we have Ray Brewer, managing editor of the Las Vegas Sun, Case Kiefer, sports reporter with the Las Vegas Sun, and Wyatt Tomczyk, associate producer with VSiN Live and play-by-play announcer with UNLV Athletics. So thanks so much for being here, guys. So who is the new Runnin Rebels head coach, Josh Pastner? Well, let's start at the beginning. Pastner was obsessed with basketball at a very young age. When most kids like him at 13 were focused on studying for their bar mitzvah, Pastner was publishing a scouting service in Houston. He then went on to the University of Arizona as a student athlete, as a walk-on on that 1997 championship team. From there, as a graduate coaching assistant under the legendary Lute Olson, and after 6 seasons in Arizona, he left for Memphis to serve as an assistant coach under John Calipari. When Coach Cal left for Kentucky, Pastner was then promoted to head coach, and Pastner led Memphis to 4 NCAA tournaments in 7 seasons. His next job, though, was at Georgia Tech in 7 seasons with the Yellow Jackets. He most notably won an ACC tournament championship and was named ACC Coach of the Year in 2017. But most recently, like our new head football coach, Dan Mullen, Pastner was broadcasting on TV with ESPN. So Ray, after this whole story, we now kind of get a good idea of Josh Pastner. How excited are you about this hire?
So there's a lot I like about the new head coach. One is he's got experience. UNLV, if you want to follow the Barry Odom script from football, they've brought in a guy who has been to the NCAA tournament, won NCAA tournament games, coached in the Power 5 conference. He understands game day operations, X's and O's, is a great recruiter. All these stories out there about how he's a great hard worker and a grinder makes me like him even more. And I'm trying to be mature and not nitpick like some other people, but there's always the glass not half full. And I know for some loyalists of the program, some old school people, some people that go take pictures of Jerry Tarkanian when they go to the Thomas and Mack Center, the statue, they're not exactly thrilled with having a Lute Olson disciple come in because Lute and Coach Tark had rivalries. But again, I'm trying to be mature.
Ray, he actually alluded to that in the press conference. In his initial presser, he was saying like that was a big rivalry, and he knows what this program means. Wyatt, as a guy who works with UNLV Athletics, it really came off in his presser as how much just wearing the Runnin Rebs gear, wearing the UNLV name on, putting on a shirt. He said the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Tell us a little bit about what you think about this hire and if this is a good choice for this program.
I think it's a great choice. Like Ray said, it kind of follows what Eric Harper has looked at for football. Dan Mullen and Barry Odom both had success, know what it takes to win, but also have had some failure and can learn from that. Has head coaching experience at Memphis, going to the NCAA tournament, Georgia Tech going to the NCAA tournament. That's the ultimate goal for UNLV. We want to win the Mountain West, we want to win championships, but we also want to return to the NCAA tournament. So I think this is as good of a hire as you're going to get, has a lot of experience, and you want to be able to win a press conference. Certainly don't want to lose a press conference, but he definitely, I thought, did a really good job of connecting with the city. 1,000%.
And I want to bring up a couple graphics on our screen right now because a lot of coaching legends, Hall of Famers, have been talking about what this hire means. Coach Cal, somebody we mentioned in the beginning who Pastner worked under, Coach Cal said, UNLV made a great hire in Josh. I know how hard he works and how connected he is. This is going to be exciting to watch. Case, I'm going to get to you in a second. Let's go now to Coach K. Coach Krzyzewski said, this is an excellent hire for UNLV. Josh is a high-level coach, and his defensive schemes were very tough to prepare for. He will be great in Las Vegas. And lastly, Coach Jay Wright. I thought this was great. Josh is the perfect hire for UNLV. He has the energy and charisma to engage the Las Vegas community like no other. His recruiting, energy, passion, and experience will structure a roster that will allow the Rebels to compete for championships. And that's what this is all about, Case. So can we compete for championships having this guy as our leader?
Well, you redeemed yourself with the Jay Wright quote. He's talking about those UNLV loyalists. I'm sure they didn't love to see the coach.
Who cares what Coach K says? Jeez Louise.
What are you talking about? Those are three legendary
Duke
coaches.
coach.
Yeah, the
So-
old
1990,
school UNLV
91,
fans
who
are not going to want to
cares?
hear that.
Oh my God.
What are
Right,
you
you're
doing,
off point
man?
on this. It's great to hear legendary coaches say something positive about the hire, but Case,
I
you
hate
go.
that I always have to be the negative one. I'm not really negative. I'm just kind of indifferent, kind of in the middle. But I don't know. This hire did not blow me away. I think it's unfair to compare him to Mullen or Odom, who to me had shown a lot more in the past. I mean, Odom at Missouri had no resources thrown into the SEC. His penultimate year there was amazing. I think he was unfairly fired. Dan Mullen's won at the highest level, a #1 in the regular season. At Florida, he had that 10-2 year. Pastner, to me, at Memphis, I covered a lot more college basketball, but then he had like a top 5 recruiting class every year. I feel like never really hit expectations. Georgia Tech, they played like kind of an old school style. I feel like didn't adapt to the modern game. I do think where you can sell me is the relationships, is the recruitings. He makes really good inroads with coaches. I think he's going to fire everyone up. But I have really tactical, schematic questions that if I was UNLV, I'd want to go more in the range of a guy that has proven he can get it done on the court. And I feel like Josh Pastner's career so far has left a little to be desired.
I mean, listen, if Coach K says Josh is a high-level coach and his defensive schemes were tough to prepare for, I mean, that's a lot of what I need to know. But this is some of the things he said in his presser. He had very high energy, Pastner. He called this a dream job. He said, you know, it's not going to be easy to get this team and program to where it needs to be. And he said this job is a sleeping giant, is what he called it. So I think he knows the gravity of this position. He's going to take this very seriously, and he's very excited for this opportunity. But guys, success is what we're fixated on. And success for everyone is different. Everyone has a different definition. But what would define success for Josh Pastner at UNLV? The panel is going to break it down after a short break.
You're watching Sin City Beat.
Okay, so we asked this question after the Dan Mullen hire, and I think it's really worth asking again. Case, I'm going to start with you on this. What would constitute the Josh Pastner hire as a success?
I hate to be obvious, and they've already said it, but it is just NCAA tournament. I mean, it's hard for me to believe when I came here.
Just the
2009.
tournament?
You got to get there. We'll make it a little tighter. Get there in the first 3 years. Is that fair? I think he's got to get there. Next year, it's a little tough. You're getting the bones in place. You want to see definite progress in year 2. If you're not in the tournament by year 3, we just saw what happened with Kruger. I think he's got to have at least a tournament berth in the first 3 years.
Okay, so if I'm a glass half full kind of guy, I got my Ed Bernstein mug and water's overflowing this Ed Bernstein mug, right? Great injury attorney. Let me just ask you this. Is it too much for me to define success as actually getting to a Final Four, winning a championship with this tenure? Is that too much, guys?
Way too much.
I would say in this
I will be dancing in the streets if he does that.
In this modern day of college basketball where the creme of the creme has such a huge NIL pool to attract the top players.
Yes.
For a program like UNLV to go on a run like that to get to a Final Four is pretty impossible. I would say in year 1, getting to a tournament with how bad the Mountain West is, right? You look, New Mexico lost its coach, Colorado State lost its coach, San Diego State is down. There's thousands of kids in the portal to rebuild this thing. If Pastner's as good of a recruiter as we think he is, if he could evaluate talent like we hope he can, I think he could get a very competitive top 3 team in the Mountain West, get into the tournament in year 1. That has to be the goal. We're hungry for an NCAA tournament. It's been since 2012, right? This is UNLV basketball, and I loved how he talked about the tradition. I loved how he talked about the history. He gets us, and he wants to get back there and restore it. And why not do it in year 1? Because you can't build anymore for 3 years because everybody leaves the portal. It's a whole new 12 guys every year. You're not getting a guy who's going to be a third-year senior. That's rare.
Similar, he said. I mean, Wyatt, he said he wants to win now.
Yeah, I was talking about the Mountain West. You talk about players leaving. We got teams leaving. Mount West after next season is going to be completely different, and you lose some of the heavyweights like San Diego State, Utah State, Colorado State. Becomes, I think, more winnable. Obviously, bringing Grand Canyon, some decent mid-major schools, but I think in year one, big thing, I think just be competitive, play competitive basketball. If you can win a couple games in the Mount West tournament, get people excited, something to build on, I think you're going to see a lot of people happy.
Yeah, and let's remind all the good people at home, Case, and I want to argue with you on this a little bit. I mean, let's just say yes, we know he's a good recruiter. But from a schematic standpoint, if he really does know basketball, I mean, a higher level coach in the college game can elevate a program once you get into a tournament to get a couple wins going. So I do think having a guy with the great basketball IQ, you heard Coach Cal, Coach K, Jay Wright, Ray's already upset that I just mentioned Coach K again, Krzyzewski. But the fact that he has that acumen, I think that's huge, not just from having the cohesiveness between recruiting, but then being able to scheme and win games from in-coaching decisions. That's what this program needs.
Well, this is where our disconnect. We just figured it out. I'm just not sure he deserves to be called a high-level coach and has the schematic and tactical bench. I'm more of a numbers guy. Your feel, you like caring for these guys. You look at the numbers of his teams at Georgia Tech and Memphis, and it was bad. They did not play a modern style. They weren't 3-and-D. They weren't pacing space. They underachieved every year. He
won ACC Coach of the Year in 2017.
One year they had a miracle tournament run. I'm not saying he can't get there. The one thing I do really like about him is he does kind of seem forward-thinking. Now he's been in the media. You saw quotes even before this press conference where he said there's some advantages to the transfer portal. He's open to do things different way. He does seem closed-minded, which I think is good. But I think with what we've seen so far, you're fooling yourself if you're calling this guy.
I just think, like Ray alluded to, this is the ACC he's winning Coach of the Year in.
Not at Memphis.
Okay, Conference USA, he did, I think they went even undefeated in conference play once a couple seasons when he was at
this example.
Memphis.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah. No, we have a little bit. We have a last point here, Ray.
All I'm saying is everybody says Barry Odom is the best UNLV football coach ever, right? He had back-to-back wins and bowl games and all this other stuff, and Barry Odom was in the tough SEC, and then he dropped down. Barry Odom made $40 million at Purdue because he beat Reno and Hawaii and San Jose State and Southern Utah and Idaho State. If Josh Pastner has to play that, he might be Barry Odom.
That's what I'm trying to say. He was competing in the ACC. So
against Krzyzewski.
If Ray's Ray, we both have nice beige cream-colored jackets on. Let's just give me a kiss. All right, here we go. We all along, really, everybody at home, we want the Runnin Rebs to return to dominance. How far away is this program from competing with the new coach in the fold? What's the biggest obstacle facing this basketball program? More Sin City Beat when we return. A new coach brings a much-needed program refresh, but the landscape of college athletics has changed, and is UNLV prepared? Wyatt, what do you think is the biggest obstacle facing the Runnin Rebs as they aim to get back to postseason play and win some national titles?
I think it's consistency on the court. I think we saw last year how many games were lost in the final couple minutes of the game. I think that's really the big thing is we need to play good basketball. I say it on the broadcast for the Lady Rebels. Good teams just find a way to win, and you got to be able to avoid those mistakes. And I think the other biggest challenge I would say for year one for Josh is just to be able to build a formidable roster. There are a lot of people right now currently in the transfer portal that left UNLV, so this roster is going to look really new come next year. But I would say really for me, biggest challenge is just got to play smart basketball on the court.
And you alluded to this earlier, so Wyatt, I want you to break this down for our audience one more time. I mean, the ever-changing landscape, just the conference play is changing. So break down a little bit further for us just how the Mountain West is going to look in this tenure for Josh, because yes, from a competitive standpoint, the road could be easier for the Runnin Rebels to get back to dominance.
Yeah, after this year, you lose Utah State, who made the tournament. Colorado State almost made it to the Sweet 16. San Diego State, who is in the NCAA tournament year after year after year. So there are a lot of talented teams that are going to be gone. And I think we got Grand Canyon's coming in. I would say that's a really good get. I'm not really quite sure about
Texas State.
So, but the point is, Pastner's accustomed to playing different type top-tier programs. So now bringing somebody who's coming from the ACC, I think he has an easier road to now get to these tournament appearances.
With the resources that UNLV has, that he can win on the recruiting trail and more importantly in the transfer portal, you expect to be top 3 in the new vamped Mount West.
And the last thing I want to say before I go back to you guys is that, listen, I think I was prepared for us to get a guy who was getting his first crack at a head coaching job. And I think that's why this is so special, is because this is a guy who has the experience, has the pedigree. I love guys who are walk-ons in college and learn from a Lute Olson. I know the rivalry, all that stuff, but I like that. His dad, Hal, was a ball boy for Wilt Chamberlain with the Philadelphia 76ers. So this is a guy who's real. This is a basketball guy.
Is that going to help them win games?
Thank you.
I'm just saying.
Listen,
that's the best note I've heard all day.
I'm just saying, this is a basketball guy through and through, and that's why when you hear Cal, Kay, Coach Wright, these are guys that were they knew recruiting. They knew recruiting, what that means to build a roster. We need a guy who's going to attack this like a GM and a coach on the floor.
If you've been here long enough, though, and I think Brewer has, and I know Kruger didn't fit this profile, but we've brought in the great recruiter. The problem at UNLV hasn't been talent. They've had draft picks. They've had a lot of really great players, and it hasn't worked for, 13 years? So for me, I was more wanting to go with that tactical guy, some of the other final candidates. I wanted a guy that was really an X's and O's genius, and you are not yanking my chain to convince me with what he has shown so far that this guy is going to outwit anyone on the court. He might get the best players. It might work. I just probably would have gone a different route if I was in charge.
Who did you want to see? Tell me who you wanted to see.
Now I'm going to mispronounce his name, but the other finalist, widely reported to be Brian Hogsden, right, from Arkansas State, ended up going to South Florida. By the way, what's that weird South Florida UNLV connection? My mom's alma mater, they had the Dave Rice situation back in the day. It seems like, to me, he probably ended up picking South Florida over UNLV. I think that would have been a much better hire. I think that he did more with less at Arkansas State, and it is more of that basketball genius kind of guy.
Okay, last thing, Ray.
So the roster can't be any worse than it was this past season. I thought that UNLV had a lot of holes in its lineup. Thank gosh that some of those kids got in the portal, because that gives Pastner an opportunity to take that NIL budget and split it. DJ Thomas, local kid, dad played for Tark, had a great 2-year run at UNLV. He took up 70% of the NIL budget, right? What if we split that up and maybe got some guys that could help form a team? Because if you go back to the Mississippi State game, Mississippi State was big and long, and they had guys that were athletic, and we're just rolling out guys that couldn't get their own shot, couldn't make a shot, couldn't play defense.
And
we couldn't get a defensive rebound all year. And Let's wipe the deck and bring in 12 new guys.
You know what, Ray? We gotta teach people how to box out. Okay? Exactly.
Yes.
I just want to beat up.
You don't want to
Pace
rebound. That's what
I just want to beat him up today.
I got to talk better stuff in the court, though.
Okay. All right. Here we go. All right. Well, is Cinderella dead, or is it? I don't know. Has the NIL and the transfer portal changed March Madness? The panel has some thoughts after these words. All right, welcome back to Sin City Beat. As we head into the second week of the NCAA tournament, there's a growing conversation percolating through social media, one that suggests that NIL, name, image, and likeness deals, have killed March Madness. I want to hear from Case, you first, because you're just beaming over here. You're ready to go. You're steaming. Is NIL and the portal the death of March Madness and the Cinderella?
Absolutely not. I cannot believe. Do people not understand randomness, sample sizes? This is the most ridiculous thing. Okay, well, there's no 11 seeds or higher in the Sweet 16 for the first time in 10 years? Okay, let's do averages. I think you go back the last 20 years, we have right around 1 11 and higher seed to go to the Sweet 16. Okay, so Derek Queen gets called for a travel. Maryland doesn't make the game-winning shot. Colorado State's there. We're right back at average. Okay, Drake, a great 11 seed. Maybe they don't get drawn against anyone that knows what they're doing power rating-wise. Odds makers, bettors would have Texas Tech as by far the best number 3 seed. They got ran over there. It was easy to see. Put them against that shell of an Iowa State team. They beat them. They probably beat Kentucky or Wisconsin or give them a shot too. Then you have 2 11 seeds or higher. This is just ridiculous, overreacting to small sample sizes. Give it 2 years from now, we're going to have a crazy tournament. There'll be, everything's changed now because these kids go somewhere for playing time. Now the Cinderella is back. No, that's just randomness. Every tournament is different. This is a top-heavy tournament. NIL has not killed Cinderella. It's probably had a small effect. But everyone just calm down. Take a deep breath, including myself.
Can I just give you, what did
All
you
right,
drink?
let's go home.
What did you
He
drink
said everything
today?
we need.
Wait,
I'm glad he went first, because if I went first, I would have been like,
The one
gotta
thing
go home.
I appreciate about the remaining teams this year is I love a good Cinderella. I love that upset on the first Thursday of the tournament. Everybody's jumping up and down and they're feeling great about themselves. And George Mason, makes the run. But in the second weekend, do I really want to watch, George Mason against Duke and Duke slaughter him? I want to watch the creme of the creme, the best players. And this year's Final 16 has that. Is it a product of NIL? Surely NIL has some kind of impact, because you could argue the schools left have the biggest pool to play for, but there's also teams that aren't playing that have a big pool. And I do agree with you, CK. I think that especially in basketball, you've seen it like high school basketball, right? Centennial had Troy Brown and 4 other bums, and they took Gorman that had 2 NBA players to the brink each season. It just takes one guy, hence Colorado State this year, to make a
So Wyatt, are you unified with Case? I mean, Case is so worth it. What did you have? How many espressos did you have this morning?
The overreaction, like sports talk show culture, just drives me insane.
Do you agree?
Okay, we'll go half. I agree that just 1 year, you can't look at it based off of 1 year. I will say, though, I think NIL is making it more difficult for mid-majors to keep players. A lot of these Cinderella teams, I think a lot of common themes, hey, they got 4 or 5 seniors in the starting lineup. They've been playing together for so long. If you're a mid-major player, you sniff double-digit points, you're getting plucked up to the Power 4.
There's a kid on Michigan right now who's getting ready for the Sweet 16 who's already entered the portal.
I heard a quote, this is on the women's side, I can't quite remember the coach's name, but they said the mid-major programs were like JUCO programs. We can get the players, we just can't keep them very well. And that's the tough thing, is that when you have that success, a top 25 programs be like, hey, float you some money, and then all of a sudden now you're rebuilding yet again. So it makes things more difficult, but I will say, yeah, it is.
Gotcha. All right, it's great stuff for Wyatt, Ray, and Case. I'm Mike Davis. Case, let's take a little breath. Let's do some